When I woke up from surgery, my mom told everyone I signed my house over to her and even changed the locks saying I was too weak to handle real estate. So I called the notary who owed me a favor, and what I uncovered put her in legal ruins. When I woke up from surgery, I could barely move my fingers. My throat was dry from the anesthesia, my vision foggy. The first face I saw was my mom's. She smiled too wide, that fake, stretched kind of smile she used when she was about to lie. "Don't worry about anything, sweetheart," she said softly. "I've already handled all the paperwork. The house is safe." At first, I thought she meant the medical bills or my recovery. But then my cousin Marcy came in holding a bouquet and blurted out, "So it's true, you really signed the house over to your mom." I blinked, trying to sit up. "What the hell are you talking about?" Marcy's face froze. She looked at my mom. My mom's smile dropped for half a second before she turned it back on, like a switch. "Oh, honey," she said in that rehearsed tone, "don't you remember? We talked about this before your surgery. You said you wanted me to manage the house while you recovered. You even signed the papers." I didn't sign anything like that. The last thing I remembered before the operation was my mom hovering around my hospital bed, asking questions about my will just in case. I'd brushed it off. By the time I got discharged 3 days later, my keys didn't work. My house, the one I'd bought 3 years ago after grinding 2 jobs, had new locks. I called her, thinking there had to be some mistake. She answered, calm as ever. "It's all for your own good," she said. "You're too weak right now to handle real estate stress. I'm protecting your investment." I laughed. I thought she was joking. But then I saw her on Facebook posting pictures inside my living room, captioned, "Finally home." "Feels good to be safe." She was telling everyone I had gifted her the house out of gratitude. Even my aunt congratulated her in the comments. That night, sitting in my car in the driveway, I realized something. The signature on that transfer must have been forged. But how could she have pulled that off when I was unconscious? That's when I remembered the notary who handled my loan closing 2 years ago, a guy named Leo. He once told me, "If you ever get into property trouble, call me first. I owe you one." I dialed his number, still shaking from anger and pain. When he picked up and heard what happened, he went dead silent for a moment. Then he said, "You're not gonna believe this, but your mom already called me last week about your signature." My blood ran cold. "Meet me tomorrow," he said. "Bring whatever papers she gave you. I think you're about to find out just how far she went." I didn't sleep that night. My own mother had stolen my house, and from the sound of Leo's voice, this wasn't the first time she'd pulled something like it. But she had no idea who she was messing with, because if she wanted to play dirty, I could go lower than she ever imagined. To understand how my mom got away with it, you have to know what kind of woman she is, and what kind of kid I used to be. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. My mom, Denise, was the type who'd call herself a survivor, but what she really was a manipulator. She could turn every story into one where she was the hero or the victim, depending on what got her more sympathy. She lied like it was breathing. When I was a kid, I didn't see it. I thought she was just strong, dramatic, passionate. But over time, it became clear she saw people as tools. My dad learned that the hard way. She cleaned him out in the divorce, took the car, the house, even the damn dog, then told everyone he abandoned us. He didn't. He just gave up fighting her. I was 14 then, and I swore I'd never let her have that kind of control over me. Fast forward 10 years, I was 24, working crazy hours as a nurse while taking night classes to get my RN license. I saved every penny, bought a small 2-bedroom house just outside the city. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. My first place where she didn't have a key. At first, I tried to include her. I'd invite her over for holidays or Sunday dinner. But she always found ways to criticize the color of the walls, the way I cooked, how lonely the house looked. Then she started asking strange questions. "Do you have a will, honey? Whose name on the title? What happens if you die in a car crash?" I laughed them off, thinking it was just her being morbid. But she was fishing. Then came the car accident. I was rear-ended by a delivery truck 6 months ago. My injuries weren't life-threatening, but the recovery was rough. My mom swooped in to help. She cooked, cleaned, managed my mail. I I thought maybe she'd finally changed, that she wanted to be a mom again. But what I didn't realize was that she was using that time to study my habits, my bills, my signature, my passwords. When I needed surgery a few months later to fix a disc in my neck, she volunteered to be my emergency contact. She told the nurses she was handling my affairs while I was under. That's when she made her move. According to my cousin, my mom had been talking for weeks about helping me simplify things. I'd brushed off the comments, too drugged up and exhausted to notice the pattern. Now it all made sense, the sudden kindness, the don't worry about paperwork, the way she pushed me to sign medical forms right before my surgery. That signature she claimed was voluntary. She must have forged it while I was unconscious. I didn't know how yet, but when Leo, the notary, told me she'd already reached out to him before my surgery, it hit me like a truck. This wasn't spur of the moment. She planned this. And knowing my mom, that meant she'd covered her tracks. But she didn't know one thing, that I'd once helped Leo out of a nasty audit mess when he notarized something without a full chain of witness records. I'd saved his license. And now he owed me. The next morning, I showed up at his office with a copy of the deed transfer my mom had mailed me, a smug note attached saying, "You'll thank me one day." Leo took one look at it and muttered, "Jesus Christ, she didn't even hide it well." Then he pulled a file out of his cabinet, my file. And that's when everything started to unravel. Leo laid the papers out across his desk, his fingers tapping the edge like a drummer counting time. I could see my name scrawled at the bottom of a property transfer form. But the signature wasn't mine. It was close, disturbingly close, but the curve on the Y was off and the pressure was too heavy. "She forged this?" I asked. My voice cracked. "She didn't just forge it," Leo said, flipping through more pages. "She had it notarized, which means someone somewhere put their stamp on a lie." I stared at him. "But I thought you were the only one who handled my house documents." He nodded. "Yeah, but this isn't my stamp." "Look," he slid the page toward me. The notary seal was someone else's name, Pamela Rhodes. Leo sighed. "She used a different notary, one who probably didn't ask questions." He picked up his phone and started scrolling. "Rhodes, yeah, she works out of Carbondale. Reputation's sketchy. Known for fast stamps, no verification. Your mom must have walked in with that fake signature and told her you were recovering from surgery, probably threw in some emotional sob story." It all fit. My mom's favorite tool was pity. "So," Leo continued, "you can fight this. The signature is provably fake, the notary's liable for misconduct." But he hesitated. "Your mom filed the transfer with the county clerk. That makes her the recorded owner for now." My stomach dropped. "So legally, she owns my house?" "On paper, yeah, until it's reversed." That night, I drove back to the house. I parked across the street, lights off. Through the window, I saw her wearing my hoodie, drinking wine on my couch. My dog, Buddy, was curled beside her. She'd even changed his collar to one with her name on it. Something inside me cracked. I tried to stay calm, but anger pulsed through me like a heartbeat. I snapped pictures, proof she'd taken over. Then I called my cousin Marcy, the only one who still talked to both of us. "Marcy," I said, "I need your help. I think Mom stole my house." She didn't sound surprised, just tired. "You're not the first person she's done this to." "What do you mean?" Marcy hesitated. "Remember Uncle Ray? When he got sick, she moved in to help. 2 months later, his truck and savings were gone. He was too ashamed to tell anyone." I felt my whole body go cold. My mom was a predator, and I'd been her next mark. Marcy agreed to meet me the next morning. She brought a folder she said she'd kept just in case. Inside were screenshots, messages, and old notarized forms, all in the same handwriting, all forged. "This could bury her," Marcy said, "but you'll have to be smart. You can't just accuse her, you need to catch her lying under oath." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation with my mom in my head, the fake sweetness, the manipulation. Then, just before dawn, I got a text from Leo. It read, "Found something big, not just your house, call me ASAP." I called him immediately. His voice was low, urgent. "She used your name to apply for something else, a loan. Using your house as collateral." I sat there, gripping the phone, staring at the ceiling. My mother hadn't just stolen my home, she was trying to bury me in debt. And that's when I knew this wasn't just about property anymore. It was about destroying me completely. When Leo said she'd taken out a loan in my name, I thought he meant something small, a credit line, maybe. But it was. It was a home equity loan for $82,000 against my house, signed and approved under my forged signature. He emailed me the scanned documents. There it was again, my name, my forged handwriting, my mother's address listed as the mailing address for correspondence. She made herself the contact point for all the loan communications. That meant the bank had sent every notification, every approval, straight to her. Leo's voice was tight. She's smart, I'll give her that. The paperwork's clean enough that most banks wouldn't question it. But I found a time-stamped record from her email in the digital notary log. She submitted this while you were still under anesthesia. I could barely breathe. You're saying she literally did this while I was in surgery? Yeah. She must have had all your info ready, license, social, address, everything. She probably got it while helping with your bills after the accident. I felt sick. I called my bank immediately and froze all my accounts. Then I called the loan office pretending to be a buyer who wanted to confirm a payoff date. They told me the account was active and had just made its first payment 2 days ago from her checking account. That's when I realized how deep this went. My mom wasn't just trying to take my house. She was laundering money through it. I drove to her the next day. She answered the door like nothing was wrong, sipping coffee in my robe. You shouldn't be driving yet, she said calmly. I walked past her and into my living room. What did you do? She rolled her eyes. Don't start. You took out a loan against my house. You forged my name. You lied to the county. You even changed my dog's collar. She smirked. You wouldn't have survived this place on your own anyway. You can't even manage your own finances. I lost it. You stole from me. She set her mug down, her tone changing, quieter, colder. No, sweetheart, I saved you. You were going to lose this house eventually. At least now it's staying in the family. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. You're insane. But then she smiled again, the mask snapping back into place. You won't win this. I already have the title, the notarized transfer, and witnesses who saw you agree. You'll just make yourself look unstable. She was right about one thing. She'd built a perfect trap. She'd even texted me during my hospital stay about signing the transfer, then replied to herself pretending to be me, using my old iPad that she'd borrowed to stream Netflix. She'd created fake digital evidence. Leo was right. I couldn't just accuse her. I needed proof she knew the documents were fake. And that's when I remembered. Her phone was always on speaker when she called people. Always. She loved being overheard, loved her audience. So I decided I'd give her one. With Leo's help, we planned a call, one that would make her confess on record. I'd bait her into bragging, make her say too much, while Leo's associate, a licensed investigator, recorded the call. But before I could even put that plan into motion, Marcy called me in tears. Hey, she whispered, I don't know how to tell you this, but your mom's not acting alone. I froze. What do you mean? Marcy took a shaky breath. You know that notary, Pamela Rhodes? She's your mom's cousin. She's been helping her do this for years. Everything went silent. My mom hadn't just forged my life, she had help. And suddenly, this wasn't just a betrayal. It was a family business. After that call with Marcy, something in me flipped. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't shaking. I was done being her victim. My mom and her cousin had been pulling the same scam for years, targeting family who were sick, vulnerable, or just too trusting. And everyone had let it slide because, well, that's just how Denise is. Not me, not anymore. Leo helped me make a checklist. If we can prove intent, forgery, and fraudulent notarization, the DA will take it seriously. But we need it airtight. So we built a plan. Every detail mattered. Step 1. Collect evidence. I started with the digital trail. Marcy sent me old texts from my mom bragging about helping family get their assets in order. We found overlaps, dates, where people had suddenly transferred property right after hospital stays or family emergencies. Leo had the notary logs from Pamela Rhodes. Turns out, Pamela's records had multiple client signatures that matched each other too perfectly. Copy-paste forgeries. Step 2. Record the confession I knew my mom couldn't resist bragging. So I called her, pretending to make peace. I told her I was grateful she handled everything while I was in surgery and wanted to thank her properly. She took the bait instantly. "Oh, sweetie, I just did what any good mother would," she said, that smug tone dripping through the speaker. I said, "I don't even remember signing those papers, though. Wasn't I still on anesthesia?" She laughed, actually laughed. "You don't have to remember, I handled it. You'd be amazed what a steady hand and some practice can do." Leo's investigator caught it all. That sentence alone was a confession. She'd admitted to forging a signature. Step 3. Nail the notary next. I called Pamela pretending to be interested in estate planning. I said I'd heard she helped Denise with her paperwork. She immediately got nervous. When I asked if she'd notarized documents without me present, she stammered, "Your mom said you gave verbal consent." Another recording. Another nail. Step 4. Secure legal allies. Leo connected me with a property attorney who specialized in deed fraud. We met after hours in his office, the lights low, piles of evidence spread across the table. When he saw the forged signature next to my real one, he just muttered, "This is textbook." "She's done." He drafted the first cease and desist letter, set to deliver to my mother's new residence, my house. But before sending it, we waited. Because Leo wanted to time it perfectly, right after filing the fraud report with the county recorder, so she couldn't transfer the deed again or take out another loan. Step 5. Public exposure. The hardest part was deciding whether to make it public. Marcy said the family deserved to know. I agreed. So we planned to forward the proof, voice recordings, bank trail, notary logs, to everyone my mom had ever fooled. And that's when the twist came. Leo called me late one night and said, "You might want to sit down for this." He dug deeper into the county filings. There was another transfer dated 3 years ago, different property. Same forged signature style. It wasn't Uncle Ray's house. It was my late grandmother. And the name listed as co-beneficiary on that document, my father, the man I thought she destroyed years ago. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. My dad wasn't dead like she told everyone. He was alive and had signed something with her years ago. But what if he hadn't signed it willingly? And why had he disappeared right after? When Leo said my dad's name was on that old deed, my brain short-circuited. My mom had told me for years that my dad had run off to start a new family in Ohio. I'd believed her, because that's what everyone believed. No one had heard from him in over a decade. But that deed was only 3 years old. His signature was there, shaky but recognizable. I called Leo back immediately. "Are you sure it's him?" he said. "Positive. The signature's legit this time. The county clerk even verified his ID in person. He came in with your mom, signed the inheritance split, and then he vanished." I couldn't make sense of it. "So he helped her?" "Not exactly," Leo said. "The weird part is the document was amended 2 days later." The amendment replaced his name with hers. Same notary, same forged handwriting pattern as your transfer. Looks like she faked him out of the deal too. So she hadn't just stolen from me. She stolen from him. I didn't know where to find him, but I started with what I had, the address listed on that 3-year-old filing. It was an apartment complex in Binghamton, New York. I drove there that weekend. The manager looked confused when I asked for him. "Yeah, he lived here for a bit," she said. "Left after a few months, said his ex-wife drained his settlement and he was starting over. Real quiet guy." Then she said something that froze me. "He left a forwarding address for emergencies. You want it?" It was a P.O. box. I wrote it down, drove to the post office, and waited. 3 hours later, a man walked up, thinner, older, gray in his beard. But the moment he looked up, I knew. "Dad," I whispered. He froze. His face went pale. "How did you find me?" We stood in that parking lot for almost an hour, talking in shock. He told me everything. After the divorce, he'd stayed in touch with my mom for a few years, mostly to help me financially. Then, when Grandma got sick, my mom convinced him to sign a temporary ownership transfer for estate purposes. 2 days later, the amendment appeared with his name removed. She forged his signature to steal the house, sold it, and pocketed the profits. When he tried to fight it, Pamela backed her story. The forged documents matched county records perfectly. My mom even told everyone he was on drugs and unfit. He lost everything. He left town ashamed, assuming no one would believe him. I stood there, sick to my stomach. She had destroyed both of us. But then my dad said something that made my blood run cold. She's been planning this for a long time. You were supposed to be the final one. What do you mean? He looked away. She told me once, after the divorce, that she'd make sure the house always stayed in her bloodline. She said she didn't care who she had to ruin to do it. When I realized what she meant, I disappeared. That was her motive. It wasn't about money anymore. It was control. Power. She wanted to own everything tied to her name, her ex-husband, her daughter, her mother. It was her twisted version of a family legacy. And now she thought she'd won. But she had no idea my dad was still alive, or that we were now working together. Because for the first time in 15 years, we were on the same side. And we were about to end her entire operation, legally, publicly, and permanently. Once I knew the full story, I stopped trying to understand her as my mother. I started looking at her like a criminal. And that's exactly what she was, just one who'd been hiding behind family dinners and Facebook Bible quotes for decades. My dad and I met with the attorney again, laid everything out. The fake deeds, the loan, the recorded confession, the past fraud tied to my grandmother's property. The attorney just shook his head slowly and said, "She's pathological. People like this don't stop until someone makes them." He was right. But I still needed to know why. So I went back one last time, not to fight, not to cry, just to ask. She opened the door looking smug, like she already knew she'd won. My living room smelled like her perfume again. My pictures were gone. My couch was covered with her throws and her little live laugh love pillows. "Back so soon," she said. I walked past her and sat down calm. "I talked to Dad." Her face flickered for half a second, just enough. Then she crossed her arms. "You shouldn't believe everything he says. He told me about Grandma's house, about what you did." She didn't even deny it. She just gave this half smile and said, "Your father was weak, he always was. Someone had to protect what was ours." "Ours?" I asked. "You mean yours?" She tilted her head like I was a child she was scolding. "Everything I've done for this family. You think you can handle a house, bills, responsibility. You're just like him, emotional, naive. I had to make sure the family property stayed with someone competent." "You mean you?" "Of course me," she said. Her tone was flat, deliberate. "You wouldn't understand, but this is what good mothers do. They make hard choices. If I have to take what's mine to keep things stable, then I will. And if people hate me for it, fine, they'll still depend on me in the end." That's when I saw it, the real her. The cold, calculating, soulless logic under all that fake love. It was never about protection or legacy. It was about ownership. She didn't see people as family, she saw them as possessions. And the scariest part, she truly believed she was right. When I told her the DA had been notified and that Leo and Pamela's logs were under investigation, she didn't flinch. She just smirked. "You think you can take me down?" "Sweetheart, I've been notarized." Then she said something I'll never forget. "You can't destroy me, I am you." It wasn't guilt in her voice. It was pride. She thought I was too much like her to ever really go through with exposing her, that I'd fold, protect the family name, keep it quiet like everyone else had. But she was wrong. I wasn't her. I was the ending to her story. So I stood up, looked her straight in the eye and said, "Then I guess you're about to see what happens when your reflection fights back." She didn't realize it yet, but everything was already in motion. By the next morning, the county clerk, the loan officer, and the notary board would all receive copies of our evidence packet. The investigator had already sent transcripts of her confession to the district attorney's office. And for the first time in her life, my mom was about to lose control of everything. It happened faster than I thought. Once Leo's investigator sent everything to the DA, the dominoes started falling. The notary board suspended Pamela Rhodes' license within 2 days. When the county clerk got the fraud report, they froze all property transactions under my mom's name. She couldn't refinance, couldn't sell, couldn't even access the equity loan. Her ownership of my house was immediately flagged as fraudulent pending investigation. The sheriff's office served her notice at my front door. The same door she'd locked me out of. When she called me that night, her voice wasn't smug anymore, it was trembling. "How could you do this to your own mother?" I didn't yell. I just said, "You did it to yourself." Then I hung up. Within a week, her little empire unraveled. The loan company pressed charges for mortgage fraud. The Notary Association added evidence of multiple forgeries tied to her and Pamela's joint activities. Marcy came forward, too, giving a written statement about what she'd seen over the years, how my mom used medical crises as opportunities. My dad agreed to testify about Grandma's property sale. That was the nail in the coffin. She was arrested 3 weeks later for deed fraud, forgery, and identity theft. The DA's office didn't even need to chase her. She showed up for what she thought was a mediation and walked into a courtroom. I didn't go to the arraignment. I didn't want to see her in handcuffs. I just wanted my house back. The title was reinstated to my name 3 months later. It took everything, lawyers, filings, meetings, but I finally got the deed back, free and clear. When I opened my front door again, the air smelled different. Not like her perfume, not like bleach and manipulation. Just air, honest and quiet. Buddy ran around the house like he'd never been happier. My dad came by a week later with a box of tools and helped me change the locks. For real this time, we didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Before he left, he said, "You know she'll spin this somehow, she always does." I nodded. "She can tell whatever story she wants. The truth's on record now." He smiled, proud in a quiet way. "You did what none of us could." I stood in my living room that night, my house, my walls, my life again, and realized something brutal but freeing. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. It's about taking back what they tried to make you forget was yours. And she had taught me one last lesson without meaning, too, the power of documentation. Every lie she ever told me died under the weight of her own paperwork. Now, when people ask about my mom, I just say, "She's in a different kind of housing situation these days." Then I lock my door, turn off the lights, and breathe easy. Because the house is finally mine again, in every possible way.